The German Chancellor earlier warned the Prime Minister that time is running out in Brexit negotiations. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said she wants a constructive partnership with Britain after Brexit, and that Germany wants to stick to the Brexit timetable. German officials say they're frustrated with Britain's lack of clarity about what it wants after its formal departure from the EU in March 2019. The British Prime Minister was keen to highlight the successes of the Brexit negotiations.
Welcome the agreement reached last December to secure rights for the more than 100,000 German nationals in the UK and a similar number of UK citizens living here in Germany. And we're now ready to enter the next phase of the negotiations, and our immediate goal is to agree a time-limited implementation period, with the latest round of talks between the UK and the Commission due to begin on Monday.
Claus Vistesen joins me now from Newcastle. He's the chief Eurozone Economist at Pantheon Macroeconomics. Thanks so much for joining us, Claus. Now, do we know what sort of relationship that Theresa May wants from Brexit?
In short, no, which is also why this idea of a transition period is all well and good. In some sense, that has already been agreed. That's already been agreed between the EU and the UK. The problem is that in the UK you have a rift within the government because the Brexiteers can see that they're being shortchanged, and really that's the story at the moment. You know, it's all well and good that Mrs. May says, and Merkel as well. I think both of those two agree that a transition period would be a good thing. It's just that a transition period means that the UK stays in the EU for longer, and you know there's opposition to that within the UK.
OK, and Merkel earlier today said that she's not frustrated with Britain, that she wants to keep a close economic partnership. How do you put that into context?
Well, that has to be put into context effectively with the idea that, you know, Germany and the rest of the major EU economies would very much like to see this go away and to see the UK maybe not cancel Article 50, but basically, for all intents and purposes, to stay in the EU or to have a very long transition period. I think that the rest of the EU would be all right with that, but in the UK, that's a very difficult sell in the government.
OK. And Claus, how close would you say the two leaders are? And what do you really think that Angela Merkel can achieve now? What influence does she have? Because she has lost a lot of power domestically.
Sure. Well, I don't think that really plays into this situation here. I think I would have imagined that both Mrs. May and Mrs. Merkel would have been able to agree on a lot of things today. What's really the big uncertainty is that, as far as I can see, the Brexiteers are waiting in the wings in the Tory government, and they're waiting to stab Mrs. May in the back if she tries to create a transition period that is too long. And that's the real problem. We don't really know. If there was a coherent position in the UK, it would be much easier to move ahead. But we're still stuck here, and in some sense, I think, you know, we're going to be stuck for a while.
And Claus, do you think that Theresa May will get that transition period deal? Because Michel Barnier says it's not a given.
Well, my base case is yes, she'll get it because they won't have time to iron out all the difficult things that needs to be sorted until, you know, we end in March 2019. So, you know, I think a transition agreement is inevitable to some extent. The question is really how far that'll go. I mean, the next EU budget is coming up, so, you know, that's the real question. But certainly a transition period until the middle of 2020 at least. You know, that's the minimum, I think. All
right, Claus, we'll have to leave it there. That was Claus Vistesen, chief Eurozone Economist at Pantheon Macroeconomics. Now we'll go to our editor-at-large, Craig Copetas, to talk more about this story from Paris. Now, Macron said on Thursday that he doesn't want to waste too much time on Brexit. Now, what did he mean by this? Doesn't he care, Craig?
No, the French don't care. I mean, it's real simple. May and Angela Merkel might be trying to call it a deal. Here in France, it's like a divorce. Pay up and get out of the house, and then shut up. There's a great misconception going on here with Brexit. There's always going to be trade between the UK and the EU. It's just how are they going to do it? But what's going on behind the scenes, we're told here in meetings at the Palace and at the Finance Ministry, is there's a political belief that Angela Merkel, the godmother of the EU, is about to be replaced with a new godfather, and that's going to be Emmanuel Macron.
Okay, Craig, tell us exactly what Craig, what does France really want to get out of Brexit, and what does it hope to benefit?
Well, France wants to get a lot of the banks and other companies in England right now, in the UK, to come here. And what they have done since Macron has been elected is really radically change the playing field. The jobless rate just fell to 8.9% from more than 10%. That's the lowest in more than 10 years, I mean, since about 2008, 2009. Youth unemployment has fallen to 20% from 25%. They've had the first growth, 1.9% expansion in 10 years, and they're forecasting further growth, 2% in 2018. This is a sea change going on here, and Macron is using these facts and others to lure investments here at Britain's expense and ultimately at Germany's expense.
Okay, Craig, let's talk about the huge number of French people and French companies in the UK. London is what Boris Johnson termed France's sixth biggest city. What will this French possible exodus mean for France during Brexit?
Well, our research on Money Talks has shown one of two things are happening. The French and other EU nationals living in the UK have either left or are making arrangements to return to the continent, or they are going for British citizenship. 2 weeks ago, we were at a British citizenship investiture ceremony in London. They have one each week. There were over 70, 80 people in the room. The mayor of the local council of Camden told us that over 80% of those people in the room were EU citizens wanting British citizenship so they didn't have to come back to the continent.
All right, Craig Copetas, thanks so much for your analysis and your time. Good to see you, as always. Craig Copetas for us in Paris.